So tell me something about Charlie Brumfield.
Charlie Brumfield was, as far as racquetball goes, well, just in life, he was one of the most intelligent people I ever met. Steve Keeley and Charlie Drake were two of the other most intelligent people I ever met. He was a tremendous competitor, and he would train and study and do anything he needed to do to get an edge on his opponent. If he thought it would help him to get a half a point advantage, he would implement something. But his competitiveness, in the early days especially, was unbelievable. And I wouldn't say he would cheat, but he would do anything within the rules and stretching the rules a little bit to win. And he was tough, and had a great forehand. Back in the old days, the backhand was more the shield. We hit ceiling balls and stuff, so he had that, which when Hogan came around, that was definitely a disadvantage. But yeah, just a great competitor, smart guy. He received the first car ever given away in racquetball, before Marty Hogan, before Mike Yellen, any of those guys. And it was a 1975 or 76 Chevy Vega. And when Leach got him a new car, I got the hand-me-down of the green Chevy Vega. Had the pinstripe Leach racquetball on both sides. Very cool. Marty Hogan was a great competitor. Marty and I actually lived together for a period of time, and he was the most disciplined, not the most, but he was so disciplined. He was going to college, he was playing racquetball, and he just was on a schedule. Boom, boom, boom. And he just stuck to that schedule. And he was another guy that moved out to San Diego that I was able to get to know a little bit and play against and stuff for practice. It's funny because I was talking to Charlie at one time. I interviewed him maybe 5 years ago. We were talking about the GOAT, who's the greatest player of all time. And I think just sheer numbers say Kane is, the GOAT of all time. But Charlie told me that the major players don't even consider Marty in the conversation of GOAT, which I find kind of interesting. To me, when I look at Marty, when he was performing and playing, millions and millions and millions of people were following racquetball, and not just racquetball players. Marty was not a household name, but almost a household name in the country. And I think as far as what changed the game so dramatically was, he came on, he had power racquetball, he had backhand, forehand, serve. His personality, I loved his personality. He was so much fun to be around. I think he was, mentally, I don't know, he was just so strong mentally too. And I really admired him. I actually personally had a good record against him when we were first playing. I beat him 5 or 6 times. First time I beat him was in 1975, and the last time I beat him was in 1983 at the Echelon Nationals, which is a pretty wide span, and I'm kind of proud of that because it showed that I had a little bit of longevity there as far as being a top racquetball player. But yeah, I think Marty, his influence on the game, to me, he's the GOAT just because of his influence. I don't know how many people actually know Kane, if they're not in the racquetball community. I love watching him play. When they're having the tournaments, I put him on my big screen, watch him. But where's the influence outside of the racquetball community? That's where I think Marty is the GOAT of the game. Davey Bledsoe was a good guy, nice guy. He had a couple of good years, and I think he's deserving of Hall of Fame. But when he beat Marty, that was amazing. I was sitting there, I was right in that front row, or right there. I don't know if I was in the front row or not, but our jaws were dropping when that happened. It was like Marty. I think people would have bet $1 million if they had $1 million that Marty was going to win that match and stuff. Davey he was a fun guy to be around. He knew Elvis. He was friends with Bill Tanner, back in the day. And, Bill Tanner is a name that most people probably don't know, but great sponsor of the sport, multi-millionaire. I remember being in Memphis, and Bill Tanner, Charlie Drake, Charlie Brumfield, Marty Hogan, Davey Bledsoe, me, he took us to this Chinese restaurant. It was like the food just kept coming. It was unbelievable. So, yeah, I like Davey. He was a good guy.
What about Dave Peck?
Dave Peck was an animal. He was so freaking competitive, man. I tell you what, and he was so strong. He came out to San Diego when I was still living in San Diego, and we played and stuff. And I always wanted to play the good players, and and we were both pros at the time. And I asked him to put me through his leg workout. And it was at the stadium. It was called Stadium Club or Stadium Family Fitness Center at the time, and the weight room was on the second floor. And I literally almost fell down the stairs after we were done, man. He goes, well, Richie, that's how you got to do it. You got to work your legs hard. The legs is where you get the power from. But Dave, and to this day, and Greg, his brother, very unfortunate there. But Greg was another great player, and I admired both of those guys. So Mike Yellen was, I don't know, the most mysterious player out there. I consider us friends, but I don't ever feel like we were close. But Mike was the smartest. I mean, he was so great. I mean, I think he won 5 titles in a row, 5 years in a row or something. But a story about him, me and him in Brumfield, him and I in Brumfield, we're at a restaurant. Mike might have been 16 years older. He was, he was a pro, but not quite yet. And we're sitting there, and Charlie's always asking questions, and he goes, so what are you going to do, Derek? He goes, well, Charlie, the reason I'm going to be the best player in the world is because I'm going to have power with control. I'm going to hit pass shots. I'm going to be able to hit pinch shots. I'm going to be able to move my opponent, wherever. And here's this, he might have been 17. Here's this kid talking like this. And I was in awe, it was just, and he went on, and he was great. I mean, he was so tough. And you look at him and you kind of go, the build wasn't, great. And, he would sometimes be a little heavier than other times, but he moved for his size, not even for his size. He just moved great, anticipated well. Just a great fun player to watch and play against. Steve Strandemo, probably the most studious, I would say. He studied, I'm talking not just watching people, I'm talking filming and watching film and, stuff like that. He would know a person's game inside and out. He would know what the weaknesses were, maybe not always able to execute, what he found out and stuff. And, especially against a guy like Marty, when Marty's power was just overpowering to a guy like Steve most of the time. Funny story about Steve, I played him in the 1975 National Championships. It was at the Tropicana in Las Vegas. And I think I was maybe not, I might have just turned 19 or something. And Steve whooped me. I played him and he whooped me. And every tournament I was going to play against him for the next probably year or so. And we played quite often, It wasn't just you played him once every 6 months. You play him, maybe once every month or once every couple months. He would say, Richie, we're going to have breakfast at the Trop today. I'm going to take you to the Trop again. Just trying to mess with my mind. And it worked. He probably beat me the next 3 or 4 matches we played. And I don't like to sound cocky, but I thought my game was better than his game. I thought I had the tools, what I needed to beat him, but he just beat me. Whatever, maybe the tools didn't matter. And then one day I played him in a tournament in Newport Beach. And I beat him really bad. I think we're still going 20. I think it was like 21-7, 21-9. I just killed him. And then he never beat me again after that. And so that was an interesting where, the mind, if you can get into a little kid's mind, a 19-year-old's mind like that, you can get some wins out of something like that. And he deserves Hall of Fame, I think. No one did more teaching clinics, putting on camps, giving lessons. I mean, no one did more than he did as far as I know, not in my era anyway. I did a bunch of camps and training. I think I probably have given more individual lessons than anybody in my 15 years at the tournament house. I used to run a Christmas special for lessons for my members. 5 lessons for $50. I'd get 100 people to sign up. I'd be given 4, 5, 6 lessons a day for 6 months. But yeah, I also did a lot. I did camps with Steve Keeley up in Steamboat Springs, Charlie Brumfield and I did camps at the Atlas Club. And I just went all over the country. Everywhere we went, I was setting up a camp or a clinic or something.
Are you in the Hall of Fame?
I am not.
Maybe that's another guy could be in the Hall of Fame.
It's interesting, and I thought about it. People have brought that up. I don't know that I don't think I have the record by their standards to be in the Hall of Fame. Now, if you took my other activities, combined them with my 12 years of pro racquetball, my clinics, my club ownership, bringing pro racquetball to Riverside, we ran it at the Term House, but that was my idea originally. But as far as a player goes, I wasn't the consistent guy I think you need to be a Hall of Fame player.
What was your highest ranking?
I was ranked number 2 behind Marty for maybe a year, thereabout. I was pretty much top 8. I had one bad year where I was outside of the top 16, but pretty much 11 of 12 years I was top 8 to 16. But I think you need national titles. You need a consistency, which I'm not saying that the standards are too strict. I think they're good standards, but I don't think that I had those standards there personally. Jerry Hilecher. I love Jerry. We toured together for many years, never became friends outside of racquetball. Jerry was a great player, very difficult player to play. I guess that's a good way to put it. He had a method of stalling, arguing with the refs, challenging calls. And like Marty, you play Marty, you're playing, you're going to flow, you're going to just play racquetball. There's not going to be a lot of stoppage. Jerry, you had to kind of get used to, you're going to play and then you're going to be talking for 2 minutes to the ref and stuff. As far as his credentials go, he had many good years, but he had that one really good year. And he beat every top player in the world, so I got to give that to him. I was more of a flow kind of guy. I play pickleball, and when I play pickleball these days, I don't want my partner saying every point, let's do this, let's do this, let's do that. I just need to get into the flow of the game. And same thing with racquetball. I just need to get into the flow and play. Pickleball's fun. And racquetball, as far as like exercise and the competitive, it's competitive. I don't want to say it's not competitive, but racquetball, you're in the court with the guy. You're right there. You're running into each other. You're bumping. You're getting hit with the ball, You're arguing, boom. And the exercise part of it, racquetball is, I could go play 4 hours of pickleball. And, in the old days, you'd sometimes have a match that went 2 hours, but you're dead. You're dying. Pickleball to me is a nice transition. It's an activity. Fun game, some exercise, not great exercise, but some exercise, especially when you get into the competitive levels. And for me, it's easier on my body. You serve, they return, and then you get to the kitchen. It's just a lot of boom, boom with your hands and stuff. And at the higher levels, I'm telling you my level of play. At the higher levels, it's much more difficult, much more competitive. But it gives me something to do that I can compete in and play in and have fun with. And I'm 69 and I need something to do. And I play golf too. I love golf too. Chuck Leve. Okay, Chuck Leve, possibly him and Vance are possibly my 2 greatest friends in my life. They've been both of them friends for 50 years. I've known Chuck since 1974. And he was with the NRC with Bob Kendler and stuff and running the Pro Tour and stuff. And what really hit it off for us in the summer of 75, so I played 1 year of racquetball, 1 year of college at the University of San Diego, and I have a job lined up with Charlie Drake and Leach Industries. And then Charlie lets me know right after the semester end or before, hey, I don't have a job for you. I go, what am I going to do? So I called Chuck, say, hey, we were friends by then. And I'm calling him just kind of whining. He goes, hey, come live in Chicago with me for the summer. So I wound up, you maybe know this, I wound up moving to Northbrook, Illinois, where he lived. He got me a job at the courthouse in Schaumburg, Illinois, 2 very prominent in the day club owners. And so I got a job at there. And it was the best, really to this day, probably the best summer of my life. And even though I almost got fired the first day of the job, if I wasn't a pro racquetball player, they would have fired me. But I had to open the club. Somehow they got me the keys. I opened the club up, and I go to the back office, and I fall asleep. And one of the owners, I think it was Bob Fitzgerald was his name, he comes in, he looks, he goes, so you're the pro racquetball player. He didn't fire me, so that was a good sign and stuff. But Chuck and I, we lived in the house. We played Monopoly, we played Hearts. We just became friends. And then he got out of the racquetball business, went to Ursa. He did that in 1981. 1982 is when I came up to Tournament House here in Riverside. So he calls me in 1982 when I'm up here. He says, hey, I'm with this new thing called Ursa. Why don't you come help me out for a week? And that week turned into 25 consecutive years of going and being his assistant. And then I got married, and so Toni would come along with us. And with Ursa, man, they were top cabin, or whatever the term is. I mean, we went to the finest restaurant. I mean, and I'm a poor kid from Paterson, New Jersey, and we're going. And one night we went out to eat. There was 8 of us, and the tab was $2,000. And it was, the company that was there was picking it up, and stuff. And so I did this with Chuck 1 week a year for 25 years, and then he'd be in town or something, so we'd get to see each other.
What did URSA stand for?
International Health, Racket, and Sports Association. And it was the largest organization of its type in the world. I mean, there'd be 20,000 people at this convention. It would be international. All the big manufacturers there, all the club were represented. Tournament House was a member. We were one little club member of URSA, and they'd have education and have trade shows. So anything you needed for the health club business, they had there represented. And so I did that with him, and then he retired, and then he wound up moving out to California. So he lived in Del Mar. So Toni and I'd go down to the beach and hang out with him and Barb, his wife Barb, and stuff. Beautiful lady, and Chuck was just a great friend, and I miss him too. He passed away a few years ago. So
tell me about visiting him at the end.
It was tough. It was right during COVID, so we had to take precautions for him and his family and everybody. And I went out. I don't remember the exact date, but it was the night before I got there, about 6 o'clock, spent a couple hours with him till about 8 o'clock, and I left and he passed away like 2 that morning. So very sad. And him and Vance, they were the only 2 guys that really, other than my sister, who knew me from when I was a reckless child. I mean, I 18, 19 years old. I mean, they saw the worst of me in my day back then, and they were there to the very end as great friends. So.